back to 10 minutes code. Today we are going to understand one of the most popular caching strategy used in high performance application, the read through pattern. If you have ever wondered how applications like Netflix, Amazon or Facebook can retrieve data so quickly without constantly hitting the database, this pattern is one of the answers. So let's dive in. So what problem are we solving here? So imagine every request of user goes directly to the database. As the number of user grows, the database receives thousands of requests. And as the database receives thousands of requests, so response time, of course, it increases. And it would be like, some milliseconds to seconds. Now, with this, the infrastructure cost, maybe it goes up. And eventually, the database becomes the bottleneck. So instead of asking the database every single time, we introduce a cache. So the read-through pattern makes this process completely automatic. So let's go step by step now. So now user requests the data about its profile to the application, and application calls the cache. Notice something very important. The application doesn't query the database directly. So it talks to the cache. So it asks to the cache, hey, do you have the details of customer 123? If the cache has this data of this user 123, that is called cache hit, and it returns that user profile details to the application. This is extremely fast because the memory is much faster than disk-based databases. So let's consider another scenario where user requests the data to application checks the cache first, and suppose the data is not present in cache, that is called cache miss. And here where the read through pattern becomes different from cache aside pattern. So the cache itself loads the data from the database, so it queries the database and loads the data from the database. This application doesn't even know what happened because everything takes care by this cache layer. Let's quickly understand what are the components over here. So here is the user which sends a request, and here application receives the request, and here is the cache or cache layer stores frequently accessed data, and database, the permanent source of truth where the data persists finally. The interesting part is the application now talks only to cache for the frequently accessed data. The cache itself decides whether it needs to contact the database or not. Why is it called read through? It's read through because every read operation goes through the cache. The cache is responsible for reading from database whenever necessary. The application never needs to write special logic like check cache, and if it is missing, then load from database and store it in cache, right? So the cache handles everything here automatically. That's why it is called read through pattern. What are the benefits of read through pattern? The first benefit is better performance. The frequently accessed data is served from cache, reducing response time and improving the user experience. Second one is reduced database load. Database is hit only on cache misses, which significantly reducing the load and increasing its lifespan. So now it's a lower latency. That is one other another benefit. When cache returns data instantly on hits, so it ensuring low latency for read operations. So the fourth benefit is the application code is simplified now. So when my components are loosely coupled, my application code will be very simple. So application doesn't manage the cache logic, rather the cache handles the loading data from the database automatically, which makes the application code pretty simple. The fifth one is it improves the scalability because it is loosely coupled and it handles more read traffic effortlessly as most requests are served from the cache. That's what it is helping in improving the scalability as well. So the sixth benefit is it's consistent and reliable, and the cache and database stay in sync always because it's cache layer responsibility to read from the database and update itself for read operations. So ensuring consistent data delivery. If you remember, this is the biggest difference between cache aside pattern and read through pattern. And of course, when cache layer is taking care of the cache population, the cache automatically loads and stores data on a mesh, ensuring future requests are faster. Since the all the requests are going to cache first, not to the database, it is cost effective, which is optimizing the infrastructure usage by reducing the database queries and operational costs. Now let's discuss what's the difference between cache aside and read through pattern. So first difference is flow and who handles cache. So in cache aside pattern, the application manages the cache, it checks the cache, loads from database on cache mesh, and updates the cache. Whereas in read through pattern, the cache manages itself. That means when application requests some data, cache loads from the database on mesh automatically. Application doesn't know whether it's a miss or hit, so which is completely managed by the caching layer. Second biggest difference is the application complexity, because here application is managing loading from the cache, fetching from the database on cache mesh. It is more complex. Whereas since cache layer is managing everything here, it is simpler, which which is the cache mesh handling. So as we discussed, like on cache mesh, the application reads from database, then writes to the cache. But here on cache mesh, the cache reads data from the database and store automatically before returning to the application. So the fourth biggest difference is the performance. So it gives good performance and depends on how application handles the caching. Whereas the read through pattern gives very good performance because cache is optimized for automatically loading and serves the future request pretty quickly. So what is the best use case where I should use cache aside pattern and where I should use read through pattern? When we need more control over the caching behavior. Let's assume I want to manage everything, when the cache should be populated and when I should go for the database. That time I'm managing the caching behavior and I should go for cache aside pattern. But where when reads are more frequent than writes, then read through pattern is the best choice. So what are the examples? So we can use cache aside pattern for product details, user sessions, topic and etc. Whereas we can use read through pattern for product catalog, reference data, configuration, and master data. So these are the six differences between cache aside and read through pattern. And that's all for today. And today we discussed about read through pattern. Please like, share, and subscribe my channel. And please press the bell icon for updated videos.